Hello, it's Katie from Lady Red Crafting, and today we're going to take this wood craft hanger and deconstruct it, and we're going to make 3 different crafts. I also have a quick bonus craft inserted in this video as well. So let's get started. Quick note, I did keep the hanger on the top square when I deconstructed these. Craft 1. For this craft, we're going to use the top square, a stencil, and some chalk paste. I got this stencil at the Dollar Tree, and since it's not self-adhesive, I used some blue painter's tape to lightly tape that onto the square. I then grabbed my chalk paste in Antique Sage and Iron Gate. Then using my squeegee tool, I go ahead and put the paint onto the stencil. Once we are done putting all the paint on, we're going to carefully pull that stencil off the square. Now we're going to let that dry. I use my heat tool for a few minutes and then I set this aside. So now we're going to make a messy bow. We grab some ribbon and we're going to cut them into 6-inch squares. I do dovetail them at the end of each of the ribbons, and then I just stack them up nice and neat. And then I tie them together, and voila, we have a beautiful messy bow. Now we're going to grab that sign, and I'm going to use my zip sander lightly and just sand over the top of that paint. I'm going to blow off any of that extra dust, and then I'm going to take some finishing wax and just put a coat of that over the top of the paint. And then we tie our bow to the top of the hanger, and now the craft is complete. Look at that beautiful farmer market sign. Craft number 2. For this craft, we're going to grab the other 2 squares from the sign. I'm going to take these squares and I'm going to flip them over, and on the first square I'm going to take my Waverly White chalk paint and I'm just going to dry brush the bottom of this side. I'm then going to do the same thing around all the edges, not getting any paint on the top of the sign because I'm not going to paint the top because it already looks nice. For the second square, we're just going to grab our paint and just dry brush again around all of the edges of the square. No need to paint the bottom on this one because you're not going to see it. I use my heat tool quickly and I just dry some of the paint. And then I'm going to take that square that we painted the bottom of and we flip it back over so we can see the top of that square. And then I just grab my wood beads, and I have a stash of them, and you know, they're already painted, some of these, and so we're just going to go with it. We're going to do white and gray. And as you can see, I'm just going to attach these in a nice pattern using my hot glue, and we just go all the way around the perimeter of the square. Once we got all of the beads secured to this square, we're going to grab the other square that we were working on, and we're going to attach it to the top of these beads. And I just use some hot glue again, and then I use some of my pink clamps to just make sure that it stays secure. Once this is dry, I take the clamps off, and you can see how pretty these beads look with this sign. And I'm just going to flip it over, and I'm going to grab 4 more white beads, and I'm just going to secure them to the bottom of this craft to just rise up the little riser just a little bit more and give it a little bit more pizzazz. Now this riser is complete. We're going to go ahead and move on to a bonus mini craft. For this craft, I used twine, wooden beads, and a fabric square from the Dollar Tree. This craft is really easy. We're just going to take our twine and we're going to bead the white beads and make a mini beaded garland. And I used the whole package of these white beads. I didn't count them, but I just used everything that I had for the white beads. And then I go ahead and I tie the ends on these, but I leave some extra twine on either end. Next, I grab that fabric square and I just unroll it. And you know, I didn't really do a lot of measuring here. I just started cutting the edge of that fabric, and I just cut 2 strips off of it, and then I cut it in half and then in half again. So each strip ended up being about 5 inches, and there were 8 little strips, and I took 7 of those strips and I stacked them up. I put the twine in between, and then I took that 8th strip and I tied a knot around it. Then I tied the twine up and around the tassel in a knot. And now you can see I'm just repeating the process on the other side. And I don't really care if the line is really straight when I cut this. It's kind of rustic. You can see that it's not perfect, but it turned out really cute, and I love how this looks. And this little mini beaded garland goes great with the tray that we just made, and so this is why it's a bonus craft, because I felt like the tray needed something extra, and this is what I came up with. Craft number 3, our final craft for today. We're gonna grab those last pieces of twine that we cut off from the sign earlier, and I take that fabric we just used for our bonus craft and I iron it down, and I'm gonna cut it at 8 inches. And you can see I'm using the other side of the fabric where we still had it frayed a little bit, and I really like that look. And I cut it down 5 inches and I fold it over just to make sure it looks good. And then I just go ahead and make a nice little rectangle cut. So I grabbed some Heat and Bond Ultra Hold, and I unwrapped this Heat and Bond, and it's still 2 layers thick, and I cut a little rectangle out, and I didn't measure it exactly, but it was about 1.5 inches by 7 inches. And if you haven't used this before, it's kind of like a fabric glue, and it works really good when you don't want to sew anything. So I took my 2 pieces of twine, and I apologize that it didn't show up on the screen here, but I folded them in a U shape, and I stick them on top of the fabric, and then I put the bond and hold over the top of that piece of twine. And then I use my iron, and I iron that down, and then I pull the piece of wax paper off of the heat and hold, and I iron it again to glue it together. Once everything is nice and secure, I actually trimmed the bottom piece of fabric on this little bookmark, and because there was not enough glue for that part, and then I used it at the top to tie it to the twine. And then I go ahead and I just untwist all of those twine pieces to give it more of a fluffier look. And once I'm done with that, this project is complete. We have a cute rustic bookmark. Thank you guys for watching. Please comment down below on what your favorite craft was from today. And until next time, happy crafting!